Good evening, everyone. This evening, we have a great broadcast for you guys tonight. We're going to have Garry Junkuhn today from 1000K Fathers joining us. Hey, Garry, how are you doing today?
Mark, really good to be on here tonight. It's 100K fathers, but we'll get to 1,000K fathers. That's a
That's
million.
the goal, right? We want to
Yeah,
get there.
yeah. Hey,
so,
Ben.
so glad that you joined us tonight. And we have Ben as well from Dad's Matter too.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for being here tonight.
Thank you.
So, Garry, tell us a little bit about your ministry. You know how you came about it, and what's your goal, what's your purpose. A bit about the goals that you have to grow it, and what that means to you. A little bit about your story.
Absolutely. So my journey started out of, and the actual birth of 100K Father started out of the pain that I went through in losing contact with my two sons when they were around about 9 and 12, and I lost them for 3 years. And that was unbelievable, painful time within my life and very painful for them. And through that, the type of man and the father that I ended up becoming and the journey that I went on, just it was a real turning point within my life. Just over 40, my life just started spiraling down that first year of not seeing my sons, where just my health, I ended up in the hospital. So many areas in my life just collapsed. The two companies I was running collapsed, just everything collapsed. And the final pivot within my life was when my oldest son changed his surname on social media and at school. And I'm so grateful for that event, because that became the biggest catalyst for me to actually reboot my life, change the course of my life, because I just realized it wasn't just going to be a few more months or 1 or 2 more years. It could be 10 to 20 years before I'd get to see my sons again. At that stage, it must have been just about a year of not seeing them. And so that just sent me on this incredible journey over 7 years in South America and Mexico and parts of Europe, and the indigenous tribes that I've lived with, from hunters and gatherers in the Amazon jungle and Ecuador, deep in the jungle, through to different mentors that I've met with in my life, changed the course of my life and formed the man that I am now and the father that I am now. And that led, all of those sequence events led me to founding 100K Fathers. And this organization helps fathers who have lost contact with their children as a result of divorce or parental alienation or a sequence of life events, and to help fathers stop spiraling down, but instead to actually go on an upward spiral, honor their children by working on their pillars within their lives. And I'll touch on that in a bit. But it's just becoming the best version that you can be, that when you do have any interactions with your children, you're not like a drowning man clinging on to any shred of contact that you have with them, and that can often just push them away. Instead, you create such a gravitational force where they want to spend time with you, they want to be with you. And so that's really the principles we share within 100K Fathers, is becoming the best version that you can possibly become, that when you do have those moments interacting with your kids and spending time with them, you show up as an incredible man and a father, able to guide them and lead them and share the wisdom you've gained over that time. So in a nutshell, that is it. Our goal is really to start transforming as many fathers as we can, guiding them out of this, what I call an abyss or absolute darkness, where they don't know how, which way to actually turn in a difficult situation of losing contact with their kids. It can be almost one of the most difficult things that a father could ever experience going through their lives, is losing that contact. And, in many cases where the children say, I don't want to see you, as a result of parental alienation. And that is a very painful thing for a father to go through. So it's really just nurturing these fathers, guiding these fathers, bringing experts in from around the world to share wisdom with them, the community of fathers to actually, support the fathers, and then different programs that are available to, keep them going on the upward spiral and, becoming the best version that they possibly can. And that ripples into their children's lives, into everybody around them, their new partners or wife if they get married, their businesses and their work and their friends. And it's just this beautiful ripple effect that actually takes place.
Wow. Wow. But Gary, how did they all start from the very first day when, for many dads, we get to find out that, everything happens like a surprise. where you realize that you've lost your children.
Mhm.
And after losing them, it becomes an uphill battle trying to fight now to be in their lives.
Mhm.
Um, how how did it happen with you? Like was it just, you woke up one day and you realized that your children had disappeared, or it was just a process that was already in place?
It was a gradual process. It was after I was married for about 10 years, and about 3 years after the divorce, I had met another woman that was in my life, and I dated her for about 6 months before I decided to introduce my sons to her.
Mhm.
And everything was great for about 6 or 7 months. We got on phenomenally well. We'd go on bike rides and cook food together and I was so happy with where that relationship was going. And then the conversation came up because she was going to be moving in with me. The difficulty, I think, first of all, on how I handled that situation, I could have handled it completely different to actually understand more how those children would respond to that, because
Mhm.
potentially this woman might become their stepmother. And everything just started spiraling down over that 3 month period leading into her moving in with me. And the last day I saw them for about 2.5 years was the day this woman moved into my apartment. And, over a year period, there was just trying whatever I could to try and see them, be with them. Though there was just, I didn't know how to navigate that space. I didn't, my ex wife was obviously very angry, potentially with the way I handled the situation. I'm trying to see it and look back now. I've got no animosity towards my ex-wife, no animosity at all towards my sons. I've got such gratitude for all the sequence events that took place. But it was extremely painful because I knew of nobody around me that went through a situation where, through having a girlfriend move in, where the children just rejected that situation so much to the point that they didn't want to see me. And I was very stubborn in that, my ex-wife and my kids were insisting they would only see me if my girlfriend was there. And in my mind, I was thinking, they're 9 and 12 years old. What do they know? If I were to get married to this woman, would she move out every weekend that they would come see me? And my logical brain just didn't put that together as a natural way to be able to navigate that into the future. So I was very stubborn. My kids were stubborn. My ex-wife was stubborn. And it just resulted in this absolute chaos within my life. And mediation is what we had tried. I mean, it really spiraled down very, very badly and got very ugly for a time period, to the point where my son, after a year of this chaos, decided to change his surname. And I discovered that one day. I started bringing about some changes within my life, where I realized, fortunately, I had some good mentors in my life. And there's one mentor about 7 months in had asked me the question on a Friday afternoon where I was seeing him. And I said to him, I don't understand why I don't get to see my sons. They're so angry with me. I thought it might be a week or two or a month and they would come back to me. And he said, and they were supposed to see me for the weekend. And I said, I don't understand why they don't want to see me. And he said, Garry, what is the gift in this situation? And I said, what do you mean, what is the gift in this situation? I don't see my sons. How can this be a gift? And then I realized, what was I going to do with my time away from my sons? What kind of man was I going to become? And that's where I started, just cleaning up my life,
Yeah.
improving all areas of my life, working out and running and eating healthily and
Mhm.
getting out there. And, I started doing some more and more difficult things. And one of the difficult things that I did, which I'd never done before, was go and grab a waterproof sleeping bag. It's called a bivvy bag in England, and go and sleep the night in the forest alone. So I found one of the forests there in England. And just before I went to go and, into the forest and turn off my phone, I checked my email, and I received an email from my son's school. And instead of it saying his name and his surname, it had my ex-wife's surname. And then I realized, man, this is going to be a lot longer than what I thought it would be. And that just put a whole sequence of events into my life where I started volunteering my time. I then gave away and sold everything that I had. And I ended up going on this nomadic journey, which continues to this day, where I've lived in multiple countries and lived with tribes. And it's been truly incredible journey. But The silver lining at the end of this is that I've reunited with my sons, and I've got a beautiful, it's been 5 years. So they're 3 years apart for them in total, and I've just been nurturing that relationship and growing it over these 5 years, and have it's beautiful of where that is at.
Mm-hmm.
And even being able to recover the relationship with my ex-wife in terms of getting to an amicable place with her.
Mm-hmm.
And that's phenomenal, and it's taken work from both of our sides, but it's something that I never imagined would ever take place, where we'd ever be speaking again. I didn't speak a word with her for over 3 years. And so, yeah, that's in a nutshell,
Wow.
part of my journey.
Wow. It's just amazing that anytime a divorce happens, and somehow there's a remarriage, something really bad happens. I mean, I had for myself, I remarried about 3 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and a month after that, I had the police raid my house, uh, and I mean, they raided my house with a court warrant, and the reason is because I possess a firearm,
Mm-hmm.
which was absolutely false. So they came and searched my house. Neighbors, everybody was freaking out, and they could not find anything in the house. Eventually, the police called me to apologize, because I wanted to, I needed answers. And these kids are caught between this mess, right? And so they all they could tell me is that we are sorry. It was just um, a false a false allegation.
Yeah.
But you know, one of the things I say is, being a person of color, if they came to the house and I was home, this could have led to something else,
Mm-hmm.
right? This could have led to something else. So it's just amazing that anytime, like a lot of us men, we find somebody that want to spend the rest of our lives with, it always happens to be a problem on the other side. And in your case, I mean, your children were the ones that were, pretty much caught in the crossfire, where their names were being
Absolutely.
changed. They were being moved out, out of town. So it's just unfortunate. But I'm gonna go to, you had said something about finding a gift in the situation.
Yes.
Um, I do know myself that for every crisis that we go through in life, there's always a hidden gift in there.
Yes.
How did you discover yours? How, like, I don't, I mean, initially you said that, to go through this process, basically you transition to a dark place, and finding that gift in that dark place, a lot of time it's a struggle.
Mm-hmm.
How did you find that out?
And I would say for me, there were multiple gifts that took place, and most of them were gifts wrapped in barbed wire and satellite. They were difficult situations. And it was really time by myself to actually figure out who I was, working on myself and the pillars of my life, my mind, my body, other relationships around me, the friendships, income side, the adventure and story pillar, and then spiritual side. And so each of these pillars were gifts in themselves. And it's been just one hell of a journey, and it's through spending time alone has been absolutely vital. And then the gifts have come in the friends that I've met along the way, and the mentors that have come within my life, and just I think so many difficult situations and difficult things that I put myself into intentionally. Doing difficult things has changed who I am. It's created this resiliency inside of me and gave me enough strength to then, after 2.5 years, to actually go out and fly from South America. I was living in Colombia in South America at the time, to go and meet up with my ex-wife and have the courage to be able to do that. Where, the family she was living in, not the family, but the town she was living in, there were 60 family members that were living there that were all part of my family when I was married to my ex-wife. And I just felt like I was going into a gladiator arena, and they were going to be waiting for me with pitchforks and tar and feathering me when I actually came back there. But it wasn't the case. It's often our mind creates all of these stories, and it's having that courage to be able to do that difficult thing, because that put the first couple of bricks in place for the building this relationship and this pathway for my sons to come back in my life. They ended up only coming back into my life 6 months after that interaction, but just so many gifts along this way. And this is what I share with the fathers and the first fathers that join this community. And even on the first call, I said, you will look at this event of you not seeing your son and daughter, if it's a year or 6 months or 10 years, as being one of the biggest gifts within your life. You can't see that right now, but it will be that, because it's suddenly now you have, a father who gets to see his kids all the time, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You don't have that time to work on your pillars, to strengthen your mind, your body, your income or business, and relationships around you, and the spiritual and other pillars within your life. But that time away, even if you get to see your kids 1 day a week, that means 6 days a week, you have for yourself. And in that is your gift. As long as you're not spending all of that time trying to fight the system and trying to change the system, that's where the gifts truly lie. And I've seen that take place over and over again with the fathers I've worked with, where they've followed this pathway and they've discovered those gifts, and they create such a gravitational force within their life where their kids start coming back to them. It's a year, 6 months, 3 years, 4 years, they come back to their father. And they're not this broken man, because they've been spending that time working on themselves, honoring their children by working on those different pillars within their lives. So it's very hard in that early stage, a week of not seeing your kids or 6 months. You feel like this is the most difficult situation that you've ever been through and any father has ever been through, until you actually realize there's other fathers who've been through this. And you will make it through that, as long as you have the support of, like, the fatherhood movement, the communities like that, 100K Fathers, Dad Matters Too. Community of fathers coming together can provide you that support. And then the wisdom that's available inside of those gives you the tools to be able to navigate out of that very difficult abyss.
Mark, you would agree with me, and Gary, I really appreciate what you've shared. But at the beginning of the separation or the divorce, sometimes your mind is just all over the place.
Yes.
One, you are in a state of confusion. You are trying to figure out what has happened to you, what is happening to your children, what are you going to do next? And often at times, many people do not make it that far. Sometimes you try to find out, okay, what do I do? Where do I go? How do I get help? What do I do next? That next question, that's the biggest question in that whole entire process, because that's what defines the years ahead and what will happen. And so for most of the dads that are watching us tonight, I engage a lot of the dads. Mark, I believe you do, and Gary as well. For somebody who is just at the point where he's lost every single hope, doesn't know what to do, doesn't know whom to turn to, what would you tell this person?
First of all, you're not alone, and that there are other men who have been through something like this. I find that, I've worked with and spoken with over 500 fathers around the world. We work with fathers from the US, Canada, Australia, Europe, and majority of those end up turning to the legal route. And everybody around them is telling, fight for this. You've got to fight for this. But from all of my experience, and there's obviously always exceptions to this, and I understand that, and I can never tell a father not to go down that path. But one of the paths they end up going is getting a lawyer, and they focus all of their time and energy on that, with the hopes that the legal system and the family court is going to see some sense in this, and that it's going to be 2 or 3 months, and the judge is going to rule, and then the kids are going to come back to them, and everything's going to be okay. The reality is that this is a very long process, and it can be anywhere from a year to, I've had some fathers fighting this for 10 years. And then you look at the emotional, mental, physical, and financial impact on those fathers. And all of their time and energy is focused on that, gathering evidence. And they never take into account what actually happens when, in most of these situations, the father doesn't get to see the kids. The mother has the household with those children. Mm-hmm. And so what ends up happening is that over that 3-year, 5-year period, that mother is in that household where there is this court case going on. She has this terrible fear that she could end up losing the children by going through this court. And she's Googled things and looks to see what are the chances of her losing that. And part of what takes place within court gets filtered through to those children. That's something often never spoken about. And it's like a pregnant mother. A part of what she drinks or eats gets filtered through to the fetus. She cannot help it. And I've heard that over and over again of children that I've interviewed that are now grown adults that have gone through this situation from their perspective on how often the mother shares stories about that, of what's happening in the courts. And that becomes often the catalyst to push the children away further from the father, which becomes the opposite thing of what the father wants. And then for the father to understand that there's no judge on this planet that can make her children love the children love the father. So in this situation, to really answer your question, it is to seek community, seek other brothers who've gone through something like this. Be aware of where you go to seek that as well, because often those environments can be very toxic as well, where it becomes a victim location, where there's a lot of stories of pain and suffering that it can actually inflame your situation worse. This is where finding one or two fathers inside of that community that you resonate with, and you've got phenomenal communities. There are great fathers in there that are looking to heal, looking to become better men. Connect with those fathers, become accountable with those fathers, and then work on your pillars, strengthening your mind. There's beautiful things like meditation, breath work, journaling. Each of those tools really can help you, even doing things like cold plunges and cold showers and steam rooms and temazcals. Strengthen your mind and give you the resilience to be able to endure this long journey that you're going through. And then strengthen the relationships of other friends that are around you. Get out there. Don't recluse. Don't stay at home because you feel damaged and wounded and that nobody around you is going to actually understand this. You've got to get out there. That's one of the healthiest things. Get out there into nature. It's really important. Go on a hike, walk in a forest, get out to nature. And then your other areas, your income pillar, you have to keep focusing on that, or your business. And then your body, strengthening that and the food that you eat. Get rid of toxins during this time. Don't resort to alcohol. That's a short-term fix that I've seen many fathers go to. Antidepressants, things like that. Those just inflame it. Short-term, you feel like you're doing okay on those, but that makes things so much worse. So get to the gym, working out. It's going to release testosterone. It's going to give you the fire and the strength that you need to be able to endure this. And you're going to feel better within your body. So it's this upward spiral that has a compounding effect. When you merge all those pillars together, you can actually make it through this and actually become the strongest version that you've ever become in your entire life. So, and even if, I work with fathers from 37 years old to 65. And so even a father that's 65 that feels time is behind me, I cannot overcome this. There is so much hope that can come out of that, and so there's so much, as you can feel, my passion is on this and how I see the changes in these fathers. Even a father that I've worked with that's 59, 5 children ranging from 15 to 41, and he's able to find happiness even in not seeing his children, where he's able to let go of that pain and suffering in that story, to the point that then he starts getting out there and taking action, losing weight, that when he does get to see his kids, he's not this broken man, a man that's drowning, that when he gets to see those children, he's got this energy and story and happiness to see his kids without anger. And that then becomes a bridge that can keep on getting built instead of a one-time seeing, and then the child puts a boundary around that father, not seeing that father. So I hope I feel like I've answered that in so many different ways.
Yeah. No,
Garry, you bring up such great points. You talked about consistency, right? You talked about not just even taking it day by day. What I've seen a lot of times, and believe me, I get and I understand, I empathize with these men because I know how it felt when it was like, okay, this is like forever. And you start looking at it and you're thinking, oh my gosh, like, how am I going to do this? And, you start thinking about the court stuff, and you think about, your kids in the middle of it and all that stuff. So you start you get paralyzed with fear. like, kind of like, oh my gosh, like this is, just you lose who you are
Yes.
because you're fighting something that we weren't meant to really fight. And so to your point, is it the fight, or do you want to win? And not that there's winning in this, but do you want to be the best of you can be for you for the long-term battle, which is for your kids. It's for you and your relationship with your kids. And so I know I try to, just help guys see that, I know right now you've got this world of emotions right now, and I get it and I understand it because I've been there. And all these things are going through your mind, but we just got to take one step at a time, and just what can you do today, and what can you focus on, and even in these situations when court's involved, is how can you diffuse, all the stress and everything that will happen between you and your ex, and also on your kids. How can you diffuse that, and what's the best path? And it's not just to win at all costs. Unfortunately, that's what the attorneys do. And a lot of times, I've had to advise them against their attorneys advice, because the attorney wants to, like, oh yeah, we'll do this, and you can just see litigation after litigation after litigation. And it's like, you just need to have now, your life has changed now than what it was before. Now you're a new, you've got a new life, different situation. You're going to kind of rebuild yourself. But the quicker that you can get to stability, the quicker that you can get to some type of peace, and then just focusing on yourself and your kids, the better off your kids will be, the better off you can get your mind clear, all that kind of stuff. So, what you're talking about is exactly what I mentioned to a lot of the fathers that come to me, that are just like, they're just in a panic, they're in an emotional state, and I empathize with it because I get it. And it's just kind of little bit by little bit. Okay, let's take this one step at a time. Let's talk about this. What can we do? What can we do today? What can we do tomorrow? What can you do for yourself and your kids? Because I think so many men lose themselves in this, because it's just, they were not prepared for this. None of us were. Yeah. And unfortunately, the courts make you question who you are as you're going through all this. And you have to have, like you said, the accountability and programs like yours and the community and stuff to say, you know what, I'm here for you. And I'll let guys, I'll say, you know what, you can vent to me. I'm here. I'm a sounding board. Vent to me. I'll listen, and we'll get done venting, and then we'll talk about what's the plan, what's the strategy, right? But I get it, because they do need, sometimes they have to process this stuff, right? But then you just don't stay ever a victim mentality. And that's what I get the feeling, but I want people to go, we got to move on from that, because staying a victim mentality will not help your kids. You got, in some cases, I've told people, you've got the biggest fight on your hands right now, like biggest battle, but how you do it is what's going to matter. So I appreciate organizations like yours, and, like just our communities, and there's a lot out there right now that are really supporting and encouraging. And I think we're getting hopefully a change in just, the past, places we've been, where we haven't really got a lot of support for fathers. I feel like we're getting a whole lot now, more and more and more. So,
yeah, it's good to see fathers reaching out more and more for help. I've often seen that fathers, typically it's more men, don't seek help initially, and probably years ago. But more and more now, fathers are seeking that sort of help. They are seeking out groups to be a part of. They are speaking to some of their friends about what they're actually going through. So the world is changing, and it's, there's beautiful groups, like I said, like your two groups, and, fathers just hang in there and keep, seeking that help and working on your pillars. It is one of the hardest things that you actually will go through within your life if you do get into a situation where you lose contact with your kids. But you can turn that around. It's just start small, like Mark was saying there. It can be as simple as starting to eat healthy and then starting to move your body, going for a walk, and then that can progress to maybe a run, or starting to do some push-ups. Something I get fathers to do if they haven't moved their body in a while is start with 5 sets of 5 push-ups, and you can start on your knees. And then from there, every day you increase by +1. And then when you get to 20, if you've been on the knees, then come back to 5 normal push-ups and then progress from there. And then you can add air squats in, and then eventually you get yourself to the gym. And then, keep that 3 to 5 days a week. And, you can just keep on going from there. So those, the mind part, the body part, and then relationships, keep getting out there, spending time with friends. And then something that's really helped me is volunteering my time. If you're in a difficult situation, I find serving others can really help your mind, put things in perspective. If you go and work at a food bank or a homeless shelter, or go and build things, to help others. So that's giving back, and that's going to help your mind and put things in perspective, like I was saying. And so, this is, there is light at the end of the tunnel. And keep reaching out to fathers like, Mark and Ben in those communities, and find the fathers inside of those communities. And then, if you are in a situation where you have lost contact with your kids, reach out to 100K fathers and, look to see, we can see if that is a good fit for you and for us to be able to help you. And then another thing to talk about, I see Mark and Ben are off the call right now. Hopefully they'll come back. But is to look at your adventure pillar, the story pillar. This is, what are you doing when you're away from your kids? Yeah, if they ask you, so Dad, what have you been doing these past 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? You can say, man, I've been volunteering here. I've been building houses here. I've been contributing to this. I've been doing that within my life. Those stories, and also picking up some skills, understanding, how to go camping and be able to create a fire with, a firelighter, like being able to start a fire from some basics. Those are beautiful things if you've got younger kids or teenage kids, that you can share that skill with them. So there is, use that gift of that time away from your kids. Make the most of that time. Don't focus on what you've actually lost within your life. Don't focus on what your ex has done and all the past events that have taken place. Those are just going to take you in a terrible downward spiral. Keep being present and looking at what you can actually do now in the present moment. And those are the things, it's volunteering your time, going off to the gym, going for a walk in the forest, each of those things, give a good friend a call, your mom and dad a call if they're still alive, or some brothers, if they do understand what you're actually going through, though sometimes they might not understand what you're going through. So I just encourage you, if you're listening to this live right now, or this is a call recording, there is hope, there is, and that hope is not, and it's important to not base everything that your life will continue and you cannot exist until you have your kids back within your life. You need to set your mind on expanding that out, that I'll be okay if I don't get to see my kids. I'm going to make the most of the time within my life leading up to the point when I might get to see my kids. And so the life you can actually live, no matter what age you're at, like I was saying, from 37, even if you're younger, 31, or even older, 65, there is so much that you can do. Make the most of that time you have left within your life. So, if you've got any questions, you can always find me by Googling 100K Fathers. There is some YouTube content available, some Vimeo content, and there are the 100K Fathers website. And then, I'm going to be growing future, the Instagram channel and the Facebook channel as well as time goes by. So it looks like we've lost. Oh, you guys are back.
Yeah, that was very good, Gary.
Okay.
I touched on something. When we start going through these things, sometimes for us men, it's a very difficult, you know, thing to share with other people, the people that can potentially come around and
Yeah.
help us. I don't know if it's something about men that always want to keep that privacy,
Yes.
or it's just an ego thing. Like, how do we break that cycle?
Great question. And this is where what often happens is the father tells the story of I've lost contact with my son and daughter, and often it's very difficult if you've got teenage daughters and you just say my daughters don't want to see me. It's very hard for another man or woman to even understand that if they've never experienced that themselves, that they see the reaction of that person of like, whoa, is there something you've done within your life? They don't actually understand parental alienation and the challenges of family court and what that can actually do to your children, resulting in them not wanting to see you. So that father then goes inwards. He stops talking about this and it becomes a painful thing, as opposed to realizing that this is a gift. There are positive things that are coming out of this. And just by saying within your mind, I don't know when I'm going to see my kids, but when I do get to see my kids, they're going to see one hell of a powerful, strong dad that's become so resilient as a result of this, and the guardian and the father that he's going to be. That mindset shift will come across in how you show up and speaking to men. That will then start building a different type of momentum within your life. So it's just really shifting your beliefs on what's taken place here is going to change how you actually show up, how you speak to other men, how you speak to other women, even within relationships. This is really critical, where you can come across as this very broken and wounded person. The same as what I spoke about, the same when you can become like a drowning man to your children, where you're going to be clinging on to a woman within your life to try and save you and give you some happiness and hope within your life because you've got all this other misery. That's not going to last very long. And kind of, bear in mind, a woman wants to be part of an interesting movie, an exciting movie, and an inspiring movie. If yours is all about woe and how terrible your life is and being such a victim, that's not going to last very long. And I guess the type of people you're going to attract into your life is going to be that other victims. So just knowing this is going to be one of the biggest gifts within your life that will shift your mindset, and the words that flow out of your mouth are going to be very different. Having this positive outlook, like, I don't know when it's going to be when I see my kids. They don't understand this situation. It's a really difficult situation. But in time, I can't wait to see my kids, to share all these things that I've learned and to get to know my kids when I see them again. When you meet another person, you share that. It's so different. It's kind of becomes this hero's journey. I don't know if you've ever heard of Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey that all the Star Wars movies and Matrix and all those movies are based upon. For fathers that are watching this, Google that, Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. You are on a hero's journey here. And if you have in your mindset that this is a hero's journey, you just in the abyss right now, you don't know and can't even comprehend the knowledge and wisdom you're going to gain by going through this difficult adversity within your life. That changes the conversations. It changes your energy and how you show up in those conversations. And the friendships you will start forming, the relationships you start forming, completely changes. No longer as being this victim.
Oh, I agree so much about what you're talking about being the victim. And so not even.
I think
I
you're
think you
mute.
muted
Yeah,
them.
I think you're mute.
Still muted. You're muted there, Mark.
Mark, I think you're on mute. Yeah.
All right. So
Okay.
not just on the victim piece that you're talking about for just your kids, but it's a mindset, right? It's a mindset that is so important especially for men to get, that you're not the victim, right? And that's gonna basically flow over to everything else in your life, right? And it's an attractive quality for a man to have. I'm tired of all these victims of men out there, right? And I understand. I mean, things
It's
suck.
hard.
Courts and all that stuff, and there's things that you have to come across, but like the best stories that we love to watch are the ones that, they're the ones, like you said, the hero's journey. They're the ones that actually, you've got the mountain that they've got a Gladiator, right? Gladiator's like the best movie ever, or Braveheart, right? It's like, man, he took on just, the nature of society, everything that was going on there. He took it on with I've got the resolve, and I'm going to come against this adversity, and I'm going to win, right? And so I think that mindset, again, this situation is so important to have, but that transpires to everything in your life. And you start looking at things as, everything's just an opportunity for me to grow and for me to get better and to learn and to, overcome, that overcomer's mindset. So I think it's important, like what you're teaching is it's just not going to help these men just for their situation with their kids. Obviously, that's a very present thing that they're having to, deal with in that moment, but it's going to help them for their life. Because you're going to have something that you're going to have to come up against. And, are you the victim again? And again, it's okay to assess the situation. This is what's going on. Okay. Take some inventory, but then we're moving forward. Right. And I know those are the type of men that I want to surround myself with.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, we want to be overcomers, that mentality. And when someone's in that situation, I don't judge them. I speak life into them. Let's get beyond this. But then I expect them to move forward, right? Like, staying in that situation, I can't help them, right? So, I think what you're teaching is such a valuable thing for, again, especially if you get in a relationship down the road, they want to know that, when something else in life happens and it involves that relationship, that you're going to be that strong, forged in steel man to be able to overcome it, and that could be, through things you have to do, mentality from a faith standpoint. It's your belief, and knowing that God's got your back, so, just those kind of things are so important to have. And it's, again, we're not a victim, we're a victor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right, absolutely. It's being the lighthouse. Often what can happen in these type of situations, when it's 20-foot seas, is that you end up climbing into the rowing boat, and then it ends up becoming 40, 50, 60-foot swell, as opposed to being the lighthouse. No matter if it's still seas or 70-foot waves, you are strong. And people around you are observing. Your kids, if you do get to see, if they do get to see you occasionally, are they seeing this little boat getting thrown around and thrashed by the waves? Or are they seeing this unmoving rock of a father, this lighthouse? And that gives them comfort, that gives them safety. And that's also for a woman that's within your life. They look to you to see, how do you handle? Are you running away when you're hearing that rustle in the jungle and that's a tiger? Or are you going to be defending her? So that's where, when it is the calm seas, in between the difficult times, is where you need to strengthen your mind, strengthen your body, do difficult shit. This gives you the resilience. It's these deep roots of a tree that when that storm comes along, you're able to endure that storm, but often fathers are so focused on what's gone wrong and life is so hard, etc. The victim mindset, that when the next storm comes along, they're not even prepared. And then that just has a double impact on them because they have no deep roots. They aren't the lighthouse. So you keep using this time, this gift that I speak about, to strengthen your mind, strengthen your body, the relationships, your income, each of those pillars. It is truly a gift when you're away from your kids, because you can then just, from what they had seen of you beforehand to when you show up again a year later, 3 years later, whatever it is, you're a different man in their eyes. And they're like, whoa, all the stories about you, from what I'm seeing about you, you're not this overweight man that can't get out of bed and watching TV all the time and lazy. You're doing all these amazing things. You're volunteering your time. You're chopping wood. You're going hiking. You whatever. Those are the things. And then those become so attractive. Just about a week ago, I took my sons up an extinct volcano here in Mexico, and it was 15,300 feet. And I'd hiked that up 2 other volcanoes before. And one of the things that said to me in this trip, they're out here for 3 weeks, is, Dad, please can we go up that extinct volcano? That was such an important thing for them. And it became such a beautiful challenge, especially for my younger son. But my older son just discovered some things about himself, and my younger son. But I've led that journey first when I wasn't with them. So just build that resilience. Use the gift of your time away from them.
Gary, I want to talk about healing. How do we find healing through all this? Being able to discover yourself in the midst of the mess. And as I said before, in every crisis, there's always a gold that's hidden in there for us to mine. But much of the work depends on us.
Yes.
In the midst of the brokenness, the struggle, the tears. How do we? Because I believe that you have to find that healing first before you can tap into that is hidden in that mess. How do we work all that into being able to discover the gift that's hidden?
Yeah, love that question. So healing, yeah, that's such an important part of this process. And I think it starts with letting go of the story of what's taken place and realizing that you cannot change what's taken place in the past. You have no control over the courts, a judge, a lawyer, your ex-wife, your kids. What you have the most control over is yourself. So start from there. And it's letting go of the story. You never let go of your kids or give up on your kids during something like this, but it's letting go of that painful story and being a victim. It is then getting to know yourself, and getting to know yourself through not things that are going to numb the pain, like alcohol, excess amount of Netflix, TV, those sort of things. It is by spending some time with yourself, getting into nature. Nature is such a beautiful healer. Meditation, absolutely critical. Journaling, breath work, all of those things have a compound. One of those things by themselves, if you just meditate through this, you're going to slowly start healing. But when you combine that with getting out there, volunteering, connecting with other people, all of these different things, you will start seeing that healing taking place. And I've mentioned this before, volunteering your time. When you're in that really dark time, go find a food bank. Google volunteering in your city, and you will find so many different things. Just go that first, as soon as you can, spending a couple of hours serving others will start that healing process. So there's many layers and layers to this, but definitely you have to be on that path to healing if you're not already healed, before you can actually be there to show up for your kids. Otherwise, you will be like that drowning man. We will drown your kids, out of your misery and your pain, and they will feel that. Children are so intuitive. On your outside, you can have this brave face that everything is okay, but they'll see the pain and suffering and the work that you haven't done that's on the inside. So start, and it is little steps, like Mark was saying. Start slowly, start with little things. Just going for a walk in nature is a great starting point. Go into your cupboards, look at everything that doesn't serve you. Alcohol, sugar, soft drinks, beer, any of those sort of things. Put them on the counter, take a photo of them and throw them away. And post them in one of the groups, like your Fatherhood Movement and Dad's Matters too. I've made the decision. I am doing this for my kids. This food and drink no longer serves me. That removing that toxin out is part of your healing process. There's so much around this that you can do, but just start with those handful of things, and they will become a compounding effect within your life to really start healing you.
Yeah, you've mentioned a couple times about volunteering, and it's so important because when you're volunteering, when you're blessing someone else, and you're forgetting about, and obvious, and most of the time in some of those situations, you realize how fortunate you are.
Yeah.
How much that you have, even though you're in a maybe not the situation that you would ask for in that moment, but I mean, just blessing others allows you to be blessed, and it's so healing. Just to get out there, and all of us can volunteer more, right? But also, what you mentioned about is letting go of the story to heal, right? That's so important. And not only letting go of the story, and it takes some time. It's not, it's not immediately just like let go of what you thought your family and what, life was going to look like, or whatever the story, again, your expectations. But even being excited about a new story, right? Like what you have talked about is how much during this time for these fathers, they can get a better of them, better person of them, because they're focusing on things maybe they didn't before because they were busy with other things, or things took a back seat that now, maybe that mountain, that volcano that they never climbed before, they're gonna go climb, and now they find out, wow, like I really enjoy that and I never did that before, right? So there's things that you can find out about yourself, and looking forward to a better story, a different story, but a better story. That's out there. Now, in whatever time frame, we don't know, but it's out there. Just being hopeful for that, I think. And so it's this process that you're describing of being able to let go of what your expectations might have been and what you put your hope in to some extent, right? But to build a better hope, a new hope, and to be a different hope, right? And like I said, a better one, because now you're taking and learning and growing yourself in so many ways. So that, like you said, your kids are like, well, like, Dad, like this isn't all what I heard about you or was told about you or whatever. Like you, man, I want to hang with you. That's their choice, right? Now they get to, especially in their later years, like, I mean, as your kids grow into teenagers, like that's just the time that, man, like you want to spend time with them. You want to help them kind of grow into those formative, even more formative years and stuff. And they'll see that. They'll see like, my dad, man, he's cool to hang out with, he's doing some pretty cool stuff, and they'll be attracted to that.
Absolutely. And it is just shifting that story and realizing what you can do, even in a space of 6 months. You can spend 6 months being miserable and focusing on all the things that have gone wrong, or in 6 months of volunteering, getting to the gym, eating healthily. Another 6 months go by with that compounding effect. No matter what your age, really, no matter what your age, you can actually, the type of life you can start living and how you can start feeling about this situation, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, that entire time can be wasted all on the court and focused on all of that, as opposed to just become the man. Honor your children by looking after yourself. And even if you have to go through the court, you're going to handle that completely differently. If you don't have those toxins going through your body, you are working out, you're still nurturing your relationships with the people that are around you. That is actually vital in this situation. So no matter what your situation, it's nobody, and this final thing, maybe I realize we're coming up to the time here, is nobody's coming to save you. You have to do this yourself. That is important. There's nobody on this planet will actually save you. You got to put in the work. You got to lift those weights. You are making the decisions of the food you're putting into your body, the words that are coming out your mouth, in terms of the relationships, the choices of the volunteering you're going to go and do. But then you get to receive the benefits of that, and the type of man you become, and then the father you're going to be showing up as for your children.
Yeah, that's amazing. One last question, Gary, and I truly have to salute you for being able to restore, the relationship between you and your ex-wife.
Yes.
Unfortunately, there are many people that struggle with that because of the bitterness. How do we? I mean, based on your own personal experience, how do you go around, fixing that for the sake of the children?
You start putting down the cans of gasoline that's fueling that fire. You always look, in a situation like this, I equate this to you walking in a jungle and you come across a tiger. Often that tiger is going to run away. You put that same tiger into a cage and you step into that cage, it's going to bring out its claws, and the smaller you make that cage, which is, attacking more, bringing more evidence, all of those things, being more stubborn and rigid and difficult, that brings out a worse and worse side of your ex-wife. Is get rid of that cage. Look for alternative paths. Look to start healing inside of yourself, what we've spoken about. Look to have compassion for your ex-wife, and that's so hard for some fathers to hear when they, their exes are extremely narcissistic and they're keeping their kids away from them. Very hard to even hear, how can I be compassionate for my ex-wife? But here's the thing. If you're trying to build a bridge for your kids to come back into your life, if you keep that fight going and that war with your ex-wife, every brick you put in place, she's smashing that down and she's poisoning it. But if you start becoming to an amicable place and having compassion and putting that olive branch out to her and trying to look from her point of view and trying to give alternatives to not be so difficult with her or the fight, somehow then she starts putting another brick and then another brick from her side, and then you building from both sides. That's the ultimate, and I've seen that with a number of fathers. It's something that might never be achieved by the fathers, and that's okay. Carry on building what you can. But if there is that chance to open that cage door to let that tiger out, do it. If you can try and stop that fight and keep stopping, that gasoline being added to that fire, do that. There is always a way. There's always a way.
Oh, I agree. And just that exact thing, I had to start extending that olive branch first, right? I had to start, okay, well, I don't know what I'm going to get back, but, I'm going to go ahead and extend it. Just simple things like, trading schedules and stuff. And I'd be like, hey, you might want to have our son because someone's coming into town, your family member or something that, he mentioned. So you can come pick him up. It's my time, but you can come pick him up. We're not doing anything, and then slowly, then I saw that in return. Right. But I just had to, without expectations of whether I was going to make the time back, little things like that. Right. And then just, just to the point to where, the co-parenting is so much different than it was before. There was a number of things that got us to that point. But here's one of the last things. Just recently, not directly to my ex, but to others that were in, my daily conversations and stuff. I was able to express to them that I could actually say thank you to my ex,
right,
for what I had to go through, which is like no one would want to go through. Because back to what you said and mentioned many times, is it created me to be stronger and more resilient and to grow who I am, the person that I am, the father that I am, chisel me more, forge me in the steel, right? Which, maybe I wouldn't have made those changes without being put through the fire. So to be able to really honestly say thank you and not with literally be okay with that was pretty amazing. And that was through some more healing, processing, that kind of thing. So
absolutely. Yeah, it's the compassion, having gratitude for the gift. She doesn't understand how painful it had been for you, and she can't comprehend all the good that will come out of your life as a result of the events that took place and the difficulty that unfolded. But just like you're saying, having some gratitude, being a little flexible, and that's difficult for some fathers. Well, if I give up this, then suddenly she's going to take all of the time, and they have that fear. This is very counterintuitive, but your kids are the ones that are caught in the middle, and they will see when you are being that flexible. You are not filling in that narrative of this angry man, not being flexible, just not doing anything with your life. If you keep on trying to communicate with your ex however you can, making it as easy as possible, stopping that fight, your kids are the ones that are going to benefit at the end of the day out of this when that fight stops. Kids, they don't want to see that, and they get seriously caught in the middle of the fight of these two parents. that have fallen out of love, can no longer see eye to eye, can no longer communicate. Show them how to actually do that, because they're going to mirror what you're doing in this relationship in their future relationships. And if you can actually resolve things with the mother and the father like this, with your ex like this, it becomes such a beautiful lighthouse for them, such a shining example of how to actually navigate a difficult situation within life there.
Yeah. Well, Gary, thank you so much for having you tonight. You've been a blessing. You've shared a lot of personal experiences, and you've given us some tools, to sort of deal with our own selves. I think if we're able to deal with ourselves, and we're able to come out stronger, and the more stronger we are, the better off the children are, because the children need us. They need us to be strong for them. I truly thank you. God bless you. Mark, do you have anything else to say before we sign off?
No, I appreciate you, Gary. I appreciate what you're doing, your ministry, and how you're just building an organization that is helping these fathers, and it's much needed. So thank you for doing that. And it was a pleasure to have you on the podcast tonight.
Yeah. Absolute pleasure. Great to spend this time with you too. Take care, brothers.
Thank you. Yeah, just stay on for a few minutes. I'm just in the broadcast.